Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about the newest version of Gruul Dragons Aggro. I'm so excited to talk about this deck today. Dragons is one of my favorite creature types in the entire game, and it's been a long time since we've talked about a dragon aggro list. I do like to frequently share dragon decks because, you know, some new cards come out that definitely make the deck a little bit interesting. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the card that's in the thumbnail today. I think it's really going to make Dragon Aggro a very solid deck in the metagame. But before we hop into the video, let me know at the end of the video in the comment section below. Let me know if there's a specific dragon you think I should have put in this deck or any other card related to dragons. Or if you have suggestions for upcoming videos, just let me know in the comments section. Okay, let's hop into it here. The card is Nova Hellkite, my personal favorite card from Edge of Eternities. This card's awesome. It's very aggressive, 4 power for 5 with flying and haste. When it enters, it deals 1 damage to target creature and opponent controls, which isn't super fantastic. You know, occasionally we can pick off a Llanowar for like a recruitment officer or something. It could be pretty solid. But the reason we really like this card is for the warp cost. We're trying to warp this on turn 2, maybe even turn 3, bash our opponent for 4, and then cast us at a later turn for 5 mana. I think this card is absolutely incredible. I think it's one of the best cards really in the entire Edge of Eternity set. I think it's just so aggressive. 4 damage for 3 essentially is just great, and then we can cast it for 5 mana on a later turn. It's going to be great. I really love Nova Hellkite, but let's go ahead and talk about the other creatures that we're playing in this deck. So we're playing 22 creatures, but we are playing other permanents in this deck that aren't creatures, so it seems a little bit low, but it'll make sense later on. But starting off, we are playing 4 Llanowar Elves and 4 Elvish Mystic. We really have nothing better to do for the most part on turn 1, so that's why we're playing the Elves. They're just great. They help us accelerate all of our dragons, in earlier turns, which is pretty good. Obviously, ideally, like we hit Nova Hellkite on turn 2, and then turn 3 we start playing our 4-drop dragons, which would be these monstrosities: 4 Thunderbreak Regent and 2 Atsushi the Blazing Sky. I've always really liked this combination. Thunderbreak is just a staple. Don't leave home without him. Atsushi I've always found to be really, really good. The death trigger is nice, so for like having a really grindy matchup with our opponent, they're playing a lot of removal. They maybe don't want to remove Atsushi quite as much because we can get some really good value from it. So I really, really do like it in this deck. And then rounding out our dragons, we are playing 4 Glorybringers and 4 Nova Hellkites. I think Glorybringer and Nova Hellkite are the best aggressive dragons that we can play in this slot. There's some good non-hasters that are pretty good, like Terror of the Peaks and Bonehor Dracosaur, but I wanted to be as aggressive as possible and play haste creatures, and that's why we're playing the Glorybringer and Nova Hellkite, but I think both are fantastic options. Okay, so let's go and talk about our other permanents in this deck. We've got a bunch, and I think they're all really, really good includes. So we're playing 4 copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. I used to play Reckless Stormseeker instead of Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but I ultimately decided to stick with Fable in this instance. Other than like mono red aggro, I think the format is very grindy right now, so that's why I decided to play the 4 copies of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's also just a better card on average, and making copies of dragons is pretty darn good. Sarkhan Fireblood is also fantastic. I'm playing 2 copies of this. I think it's really good in this metagame. It's also great because in combination with Fable and, Sarkhan itself, we're able to really do a lot of card filtering, which is great. We're able to pitch like those extra lands and extra elves that we really don't want in the mid to late game, and we can try to draw into some more gas to keep up the pressure, which I think is fantastic. And then we're also playing the 2 copies of Herd Heirloom, also great with card draw, but it's really good if our opponent does take out like an early game Llanowar Elf. We're still able to do something on turn 2 and try to hit a 4-drop dragon on turn 3, which is pretty good. So yeah, huge fan of the Herd Heirloom in this deck as well. And then our other spells that we're playing, 4 copies of Burst Lightning and 4 copies of Invasion of Tarkir. I really do love Burst Lightning in this deck just because we're able to kick this pretty easily. We do have, 23 lands, spoiler alert, and we're playing a whole bunch of elves and such, so it's not going to be hard to kick the Burst Lightning, so that's why I figured it was better than Torch the Tower. And then Invasion of Tarkir. Man, this card is awesome. It's basically a lava axe for 2 mana, which is pretty sweet. All those dragons that are in our hand, we get to deal extra damage with revealing them. If you have 2 Invasion of Tarkirs, you're able to like ping the second one, or the first one with the second one, which is pretty good. And then obviously we do get Defiant Thundermaw on the backside, which is just absolutely incredible. Whenever dragon you control attacks, it deals 2 damage to any target. That basically means target opponent loses the game, because we're just going to have a few dragons in play and attack and just start dividing a whole bunch of damage. It's going to be absolutely nutty, and I really love Defiant Thundermaw. Okay, let's go and start talking about the lands. Honestly, it's a pretty standard mana base for the most part. We're playing 23 lands. It's really nothing too crazy, but we are playing a few spicy lands. So starting it off, we're playing 4 copies of Copperline Gorge, 4 copies of Stomping Ground, and 4 copies of Carplusian Forest as our main dual lands. Stomping Ground is also in Edge of Eternities. I think it is a fantastic pickup right now. As of the recording of this video, it is pre-release day, and this card is only going to get cheaper. I haven't seen Stomping Grounds, I don't think this cheap ever. So if it keeps going down from the recording of this video, pick up your copies. It's the best dual land, at least Gruul dual land in the format. You might as well pick them up if they're going to be that cheap. So yeah, go ahead and pick up your copies of Stomping Ground if you have not already. And then we are also playing 4 copies of Cragcrown Pathway, 1 Cavernous Souls, and 1 Haven of the Spirit Dragon as our other dual lands. Cavern is pretty self-explanatory. It's great against those pesky control decks. If there's a lot of control decks in your local metagame and you happen to have an extra copy of Cavernous Souls, I would definitely consider playing 2 copies. Haven of the Spirit Dragon, I really love because of Sarkhan's looting ability. There's going to be sometimes where maybe like in the early game we're not hitting our lands, you know, or we're getting a little bit unlucky. We need to start pitching some dragons to be able to try to get some land drops. With Haven of the Spirit Dragon, we can buy them back, which is pretty good. So definitely a huge fan of Haven of the Spirit Dragon in this deck. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 1 Boseiju, 1 Zukenzen because they're free. And then we are playing 2 copies of Lair of the Hydra and 1 basic mountain. And as our spicy basic land of the day, I decided to do this Edge of Eternity's basic land. I think a lot of the non-full arts also look very good. And I don't know, I could see a Nova Hellkite hanging around this mountain, you know, like they got that nice lava pit. I don't know, it just seems like a place that like a weird space dragon would like to hang out. I don't know, that's just me. But anyways, let's go and talk about the sideboard here, which the sideboard is relatively straightforward, but I love to mention this to everybody. If your sideboard looks a little bit different than mine, that's totally fine. This is just based off of what I personally run into on Magic Arena, as well as what I run into in paper, but there's honestly a lot of customizing you can do. There's a lot of good sideboard cards that I normally like to include, but I did not. It really just, again, depends on what your local metagame. Feel free to go ahead and adjust this if you need to. But we're playing 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage. It's great against Arclight Phoenix. It's great against Collected Company decks. I feel like Coco decks are everywhere right now. It's also really good against Ygra, so do keep that in mind. Grafdigger's Cage, I think the card is fantastic. We're playing 4 copies of Pick Your Poison. Don't leave home without them. Pick Your Poison is the best sideboard card in this deck. It's good against Quarry Steelcutter because the decks that play Quarry Steelcutter tend to not play a lot of artifacts. It's good at taking out enchantments like Fable the Mirrorbreaker, as well as Unholy Annex, and creatures with flying for opponents playing Atraxa or, you know, just like a bunch of cheap flyers. It's really good against them. 2 copies of Dragon's Fire. I really do like this card. You know, it's better at taking out like bigger creatures that maybe we struggle with a little bit. It's also just extra removal, which is pretty good. I also chose the Jumpstart art from this one because I think the Jumpstart art is awesome. So that's why I usually don't like to include like the alternate arts, but that art just looks so good. We are also playing 3 copies of Magebane Lizard. This card is fantastic against all the different Spellslinger decks. I like to bring this in against midrange and control. After all, we're going to be the aggressive deck pretty much every single time, and in those instances, we're going to want Magebane Lizard. The card is fantastic. We're also packing a few dinosaurs here. 2 copies of Rampaging Ferocidon. Good against all the different life gain decks, as well as decks that go extremely wide. It's very good against those. And then 2 copies of Tranquil Frillback. It's really just a great card in general. Obviously, all 3 of the modes, you bring them in when it's relevant. It's just a really nice card to be able to pack in a deck like this. I don't know. I'm just a big fan of Tranquil Frillback. I obviously play it a lot in Dinosaurs, and it's also very good in this deck as well. So the next thing we have to talk about is the tips in strategy. I've got 2 tips that's going to help you improve playing this deck. One of them is relatively obvious, and the other one is maybe kind of obvious, but I wanted to at least talk about it just because not everybody realizes it. And that's with this card, Invasion of Tarkir. It cannot target itself. So don't think you can like have 3 dragons in hand and then like target itself and then immediately flip this. It's to any other target. But if you do have a second Invasion of Tarkir, you can play the first one and maybe dome the opponent for 4 or 5, and then we can play another invasion and try to hit our second one to flip it. It's definitely very, very interesting. But yeah, Invasion of Tarkir is one of the best cards in this deck, but I just wanted to mention it is any other target. I've seen some people, like I've let them borrow my dragon deck in the past and then they try to target itself, and obviously it cannot do that. So keep that in mind if you're looking to play this deck. And then the other thing I have to mention, I like to mention this, not in every video, but it's really important with this deck. Please remember your triggers. I mean, just, it's so frustrating when I see people playing all these really cool decks, you know, at FNM and paper, and they're missing all their really good triggers. And after all, the reason we're playing Fable the Mirrorbreaker is because after we draw, it's when this card gets triggered. So keep that in mind. Thunderbreak Region. Whenever our opponent targets it with a spell or an ability, we get to deal 3 damage to them. I know a lot of the time it's like when it's targeted by a spell, especially nowadays, but this one is spell or ability. So keep that in mind. And then same with that Sushi. When it dies, we get that really nice death trigger. After all, that's why we're playing the card, because if our opponent kills it, we get some really good value from it. Just remember your triggers. Whatever you gotta do to remember them, please remember, do not forget them. The last thing that I have to go over today is the budget options, which honestly is pretty straightforward. We can swap out Invasion of Tarkir as well as Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Invasion is not as much as it was a few months ago. It's definitely gone down, at least with the hype of like the whole dragons, like, you know, from Tarkir Dragonstorm coming out. So the invasions really aren't too much, and really neither is Fable, all things considered, just because, you know, it's really at an all-time low for the most part. But if you're looking to swap cards out, I would say that those are your best options. You could swap out Invasion for a card like Draconic Roar. You could also swap out Fable of the Mirrorbreaker for like Domri Anarchabolas, as well as a Reckless Stormseeker. You can also play some budget utility lands. I know in the budget version, I went up to full 4 copies of Haven of the Spirit Dragon, just because we cut like Boseiju and Sekenzen and Cavern of Souls. So I just went up the full 4 copies there. But the current list, as it's constructed right now, is $215 US, which is relatively average, you know, for like a dual color aggro deck that plays Cavern of Souls and Boseiju. It's pretty average. I mean, most of our non-lands are relatively cheap, but I was able to get the budget list down to $58 US, which all I did was I swapped out Sarkhan for Domri Anarchabolas. I swapped out Fable of the Mirrorbreaker for Reckless Stormseeker, Invasion of Tarkir for was it Draconic Roar, and then I switched in some budget dual lands. I put in, I always forget the name of the red-green slow land. I can never remember the name of it, but I swapped it in that one. I took out the Stomping Grounds. I wanted to keep in the Stomping Grounds for the budget list. I was able to get it under $100 with just the Stomping Grounds staying in because they are pretty cheap. But yeah, you're able to get it down to $58 US and still have a pretty darn good mana base for this deck. So yeah, Gruul Dragons, I love it. This deck is so fun to play. I've played it, you know, at like RCQs and stuff like that. I play it at my local FNM, and it's a blast. And I think Nova Hellkite is a huge addition for this deck. So definitely let me know what you think about it in the comment section, whether Nova Hellkite, the deck, whatever. Just let me know what your thoughts are on it. And also let me know if you play a deck similar to this in Standard or as well as Pioneer, and maybe what the differences are in your deck. And that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Cyril Noki, Michael D, our premium channel member, The Common Cold, Jeremy P, and BG Stilts. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 US a month, and you gain access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, that's all I've got for you today. I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.